Hey everybody, what's up today? Just got Elijah with me, heading down to Joplin to see Dad. Hadn't been down there in a couple weeks because we're at the Bassmaster tournament down there at Lay Lake. But hey, I just wanted to do today's YouTube video on a topic I've been thinking about a lot, you know, since the season's finally got wrapped up. And that's the topic of luck and fishing. And you know, looking back, you know, I finished 13th of the points for the Bassmaster Opens. Doesn't look like it's going to be enough to qualify me for the Elite Series because everybody accepted their invitations and they're just not going to work down that far of the list. So unless I get in on some type of expanded Legends exemption, it doesn't look like it's going to happen this year. That would be nice. But anyway, it gives me a chance to sort of reflect on if things would have been a little bit different. You know, what the turnout would have been different. You know, when you talk about luck, you know, it's synonymous with fishing. I hear people talk about it all the time, about if somebody, people that don't really understand fishing that much, they say if somebody does good, well, they got really lucky, or if they didn't do good, it's like, well, you just didn't have much luck today. And that's how they quantify and they dismiss success or failure in fishing. And I've never been like that. I've always been somebody that when you talk about luck, I try to delve deeper into what that actually is and what that actually means, instead of just like taking the easy way out and just saying you know, it was just some random chaos within the universe that caused something to work or not work. But in my opinion, and I'm curious to hear everybody's opinion on this, because first of all, there's no right or wrong answer when you're talking about what is luck. Is it a myth or is it real? It's all theory. Nobody knows. It's one of those mysteries of the universe. But from my experience and my analyzation and my thoughts about it, I've sort of come up with two conclusions from my point of view. Curious to hear everybody else's. But to me, you've got two different aspects of it. You've got the sort of the clinical aspect of luck, good luck or bad luck, and then you have the more philosophical way to approach it. And the clinical aspect of it, you know, for example, let's talk about what happened the first day at Lay Lake is a good example. You know, the first day of the tournament, I'm flipping down this bank, and there was an overhanging tree, and there was a bunch of like viney type grapevines that were laying in the water. You guys have seen that, I'm sure. And I flipped my jig in the thickest part of the viney stuff, went down a couple feet, and the fish hit it, and I set the hook, and immediately I brought the fish up to the surface, and it's this giant. It's like a 5 to 7 pounder. It's one of those just huge bass. I mean, the thing looked like it was 23, 24 inches long. So I kicked the trolling motor on high, and as I'm heading over to it, it's sort of pinned against the surface, which you do not want, because I've fished that type of stuff enough to know that when you get a fish in a vine section like that, if you don't get that fish out of that vine section, you lose it most every single time. It just seems like it always happens like that. And so I was trying to determine how much pressure I needed to put on that fish, if I needed to try to pull it out of the vine or let the fish go down and not pin it against there. So I'm sort of just putting tension on the line, not too much and not, you know, just where it's not slack. And I'm working over to it, and the fish is thrashing on the surface, stops thrashing, and it's sort of laying there. Excuse me, and I get about 5 foot away from it, and the fish just twists and comes off. So you can imagine how frustrating that was. I mean, that was my tournament right there. That was my top 10. So anyway, what was that? Was that just bad luck? Was that a controlled variable that I had something to do with? That was a non-controlled variable? And here's my thoughts on it. First of all, if that fish would have been hooked through the roof of the mouth, in the hard part of the mouth, that fish wouldn't have came off even if it got pinned on the surface. It would have stayed pinned on there. But obviously that fish was hooked, you know, in a soft part of the mouth, on the side, maybe skin hooked back in the roof of the mouth. I don't know, but it wasn't hooked real good, and it came off. So what determines that? Is that, you know, is that something that you have control of? And in my opinion, do not have control of how the fish bites a bait. When that fish takes the bait in and you set the hook, you don't know where the bait is inside of that fish's mouth. If he's just barely got it towards his lips, or if it's way back in his throat, you don't know. That's an uncontrolled variable. You do have control over your hook set and how you fight the fish. So in that case, in this particular case, I go back and look what I could have done differently as far as setting the hook or fighting the fish, and then I accept the fact that there's nothing I can do with the way the fish bit the lure. So when you look at luck as being something that's a myth or reality in that sense, I look at that situation as more of a simply pure mechanical variable. It's the mechanics of how the bait was taken in the fish's mouth and how you fought that fish, and a little bit about your equipment, the barb on the jig, the line, whatever. There's some control variables. But on the other aspect that I've got when I think about luck, I also look at it from a philosophical viewpoint, in some bigger picture, bigger spiritual picture, whatever there. And so if I lose a fish like that, there's also an aspect that goes through me about maybe some karmic debt. Am I being punished for something that I did bad at one point? Or if I get those fish in, am I being rewarded for something I did a good point? That always goes through my mind. So, and one of the reasons it makes me think about this is that, I've seen a lot of people in this sport. Hey, Dad is talking right now. I've seen a lot of people in the sport that are not very good people. They've got some integrity issues. They're dishonest. They've done some things that have made just everybody question how sincere they are. And I've seen those people excel in the sport. I've seen them win tournaments. I've seen them dominate tournaments. And it doesn't make sense, because behind the scenes, I know these people are not real good people, yet they exceed in the tournaments. And then on the other hand, I've seen some people that are just the salt of the earth, dishonest, they're full of integrity, they help other people out, they do everything they can to be good citizens. They lead an exemplary life, and they just struggle in tournaments, and they have the worst breaks that you can imagine. So when you look at it from sort of the karmic aspect of it, that doesn't make any sense either, because it doesn't, a good life and being a good person is not rewarded in your tournament success. So I go back and forth on it. I've got this, it's like I've got this 50-50 thing. It's like there's when you have things happen in your fishing that you consider lucky or unlucky, it's like I look at it like in some bigger, universal picture, and I also look at it from, mechanical, clinical viewpoint that goes with that. But I'd be curious to see what you all say about that too, because, I've seen this so many times. I've heard guys that in a tournament that they swing a 4 or 5 pounder over to the side of the boat, and it gets in the air and it hits the gunwale on the boat, and some of the guys that when it comes unhooked in the middle of the air, flips on the gunwale, and some of the guys say the fish flops back in the boat, and some other guys say the fish flops back in the water and they lose it. So what is that? I mean, what is that? Is like, that is easy to say that was just a bad break or lucky break, but is there anything more to that? Is there something that's going on that we just simply do not understand? Are there forces at work that we don't understand, that maybe at some point, thousands of years from now we will, when we're off to do in other realms of existence? So it's just an interesting topic to debate. Like I said, there's no right or wrong answers. A lot of this has to do with your viewpoint on reality. If you're like a religious person, a lot of it you probably just attribute to the will of God. If you're a secular person, you just may say it's like random, neutral chaos that the universe throws out there, and there's nothing you can do about that. And then I think a lot of people sort of lay somewhere in between there as far as their viewpoint on reality tied into a a combination of spiritual and secular. So, and that's what makes everybody unique and different. That's if we were all the same, wouldn't that be pretty boring? But everybody's different. Everybody's got a different outlook on life and what they think life is and how it's laid out. But anyway, curious to hear everybody's viewpoint. Drop some comments on this YouTube video. Let's get a discussion going. Once again, like I said, appreciate everybody tuning in, subscribing to the channel. I'm disappointed in this season not qualifying through the traditional means to the elites. If I don't get an exemption from Bass this year to fish the elites, I'll get out there next year and hit it hard too, and try to qualify like that. So anyway, I hope you guys are having a good weekend, and we'll check in a little bit later. Talk to y'all soon.